We've got another interview here on the Gray Box Podcast. I'm excited about this interview. It was a great sit down with my friend Joanna. We've just recently been acquainted through a number of circumstances, and I wanted to have her on to talk about her expertise in her field. She is a rock star of a person. She is a grinder. She battles. She isn't afraid of who she is. She isn't afraid of the person that she's going to become. She doesn't limit herself. She's one that's been through trials and continues to go through trials, but doesn't let that break her down. She is a person that women and young women can look up to, a role model, and is a seemingly normal person, which is hard to find when it comes to role models. We tend to look at role models as those people that are in movies or sports or things like that. So here is a person that has an expertise in yoga, something that I really like, something that I think if people did, they would be quite a bit more relaxed and less at each other's throats. So we talk about that. We talk about thinking inward, breathing a little bit, doing things that kind of center ourselves instead of always being in the moment of just at each other. I think it's really important, especially now, to be concerned with inward thinking and things that will calm us and things that will make us more present for the moment and have some alone time where you think and sit with yourself. So this is one that I'm really excited to show to you guys. So grayboxpodcast.com is where you can find really everything, but follow me on Instagram and any of the social stuff. Also YouTube. Subscribe to the Gray Box Podcast on any of the platforms that you listen to your podcasts. That would be greatly appreciated. And rate and subscribe, all those things. Anyway, so let's get to it. This is a great interview, a great sit down, a great talk with my friend Joanna. In terms of yoga, like you're in the yoga industry.
Yes.
It is not a industry where conservatism lives, or Republicans, or I mean, again, we're labeling things, but like that's not a world that exists. Do you see that a lot?
Absolutely. I've been in the game in the yoga world here on the Seacoast for almost a decade now. And the past year and a half has been when I share my story as to the doxing, discrimination, and defamation that I've gone through. People are like, jaw to the floor. Wait, are we talking about the yoga industry right now? Because it is not all flowers, peace, skipping rainbows, as you may think. A lot of people preach, we're inclusive, we're welcoming, we're diversity, we're this. They're not. Okay. They are intolerant. They only accept you if you agree with their beliefs or ideologies. Otherwise, you're canceled, you're shut down, you're doxxed. That's it. So I personally have felt this activation within my soul to speak in the past year, really, about world events. And I feel like I'm alone on the Seacoast here. Because I'm going against the grain. I mean, again, I am not to say I am right, I am wrong, or they are right, they are wrong. I'm trying my best to zoom out from a higher perspective, but there are almost every local studio has a BLM flag hanging in their front window.
Yeah.
And they'll say on their website, if you don't agree with this, then go somewhere else.
Interesting.
And most people will bow and just put their head down and go along with it. I can't tell you, I mean, I'm talking hundreds of people. I don't agree with it, but I just don't want to get involved. I don't want to start anything,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, he has a nice beard at least, so
He does have a nice
I
beard.
approve.
Yeah.
I approve of that gentleman.
He takes a lot of pride and craft in his beard.
It is a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. I can attest to that. So how do you? So you've been doing in the yoga industry for 10 years. How long have you like owned your own shop or like kind of been doing it on your own?
Sure, yeah. So I have owned my business of Zen Den Yoga for 3.5 years. June will be the 4-year mark. I expanded to my second location in August 2019, and I originally opened Zen Den in June of 2017. So shortly after I first opened, I needed more space, so expanded to a second location. Because where I'm located, I'm right on the southernmost border of Maine. So New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire is a 15 minute drive, tax-free New Hampshire, you know. And that's actually before I started Zen Den, I was managing a studio in Portsmouth. So people knew me, they knew my name, so on and so forth. So I kind of had a foot in the door, if you will.
Yeah, and people will travel, quite far
Yeah.
for their studio, their yoga studio.
I mean,
So
it's just like anything else, right? A hair salon, you're going to
yeah.
travel to find your person.
So what's your shtick? What are you about at your studio? What's like everybody kind of has a, kind of a feel about their studio. What's yours? What would you say it is?
Zen Den is a place where you can come and just be real. There's this stigma in the West. I mean, for God's sakes, yoga's on like, I don't even know, like what cigarette commercials, like a tampon commercial. I mean, yoga's everywhere. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
it
saying?
is.
And it kind of negatively portrays this image of vegan Lululemon model that you have to be. And I just can't stand those paradigms. They're just ridiculous. So you don't have to own Lululemon to come into my studio, because I'm telling you, like, there are people who like do their makeup previously. Like there are people who are like, oh, just in case I meet someone, I have to put makeup on. And hey, girl,
Oh yeah.
do what you got to do. But like the yoga that we do, that I teach, is very much from the East. So it's very much dedicated to tradition, meaning that it's a very inward intellectual study. So what's very, very common in the West is vinyasa flow yoga. I come from that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not knocking it at all, but vinyasa was created in the West. So there are postures that are created in the West. Okay. And now we have to remember that yoga was designed to heal. Okay, so you start to look at these certain flow classes where it's so fast, you can't tune in to tweak alignment. And then these people are doing these yoga flows, these yoga postures day in and day out, year after year after year. And then we're seeing in the West people in their 50s getting hip replacements or shoulder replacements due to these tragic injuries that poor alignment based yoga is giving. And it's like, whoa, we got to pump the brakes here, because remember, right, it's a big dismantling. Because in the West, what do? We want instant gratification. We glorify busyness. Most people would come to yoga to get a workout, and it's like, actually, yoga is the exact opposite of that, to be honest with you.
So that's exactly what I thought about when you said the flow style yoga is definitely feels more like, I mean, and I'm not versed in yoga. I have done yoga and do it occasionally, but it sounds more like a workout, like plyometric-y. It sounds like more, body weight type movements where you're trying to burn some muscles, get them to burn and feel something, which I don't think's bad, but I've from doing yoga, I really believe that if people do some sort of meditation or yoga or mind kind of inward thinking, we'd have a lot less divisiveness because we'd be more open and we'd be comfortable inside of our mind and be comfortable with other people's opinions and comfortable with like where people are coming from because we're more confident in where we sit and where we stand. And we also understand, and this is just my perception of my personal experience doing yoga, it allows you to understand that you are fallible, you make mistakes, you can heal, you can change, you can make you can change the thought process in your mind in order to become whole in certain areas.
Yes.
And I think that that's kind of lost. Like you said, in Western societies, we do it in America heavily. It's just like now, instant. I want to go. I want to get a workout. I want to get out of there and get back to my life.
Right. And I think that's also something that I really offer at Zenden. And that's, I get a lot of feedback from people who will say, like, I've gone to every other studio around, but I didn't fit the mold. It moved too quick. I was coming to yoga because I had an injury, and the teacher just kind of looked at me and said, oh, child's pose. Or, so two things, right? We also think from the West and the commercials and all that jazz, we think yoga equals foot behind head. So there
flexibility. Yoga is flexibility.
Which, sure, that's a component, right? But
yeah,
it's not just about a pretty pose to put on Instagram. All right. So let's look at yoga as a tree. Most people would think the tree equals asana. Now, asana, tomato, it means yoga posture. So most people don't know that the yoga posture is just a branch. It's not the whole tree. So they have a branch of posture. Another branch is pranayama, which is breath work. Another branch is, meditation. Another branch is withdrawal of senses. There are so many branches, but in the West, we overfeed the branch of yoga posture, which again, there's yoga asana is very important. Part of the reason why stressing the body and stressing the muscles is to take the stress from the mind and let it run through the body. So the body can move through that stress. So the mind is then clear after class. I mean, have you ever taken a class and have you ever felt like that yoga buzz or like that yoga high at the end where you're like, whoa, I feel floaty. I feel like, I don't know where I went, but I just drifted to another world. Have you personally experienced that yet?
Yeah. And I would say that my favorite part is kind of what kind of leads into that is Shavasana, where you kind of lay there and I've been with, a few instructors, but I like an instructor in that state when you've kind of done everything and then you're kind of laying there, kind of doing some mind work. I like an instructor to talk a little bit and allow you to explore your mind a little bit, because life is stressful. Life can be, especially in the West, like we're talking about, can be very instant, can be very in the moment and not forward thinking. And so to lay and just let your mind kind of travel and be okay with where it's going is kind of what you're talking about. For me, I'm exploring that and I'm feeling like, wow, like I'm in a different place. I'm laying here on the ground, but it sounds super hippy dippy, but like you're not there. You're in a different place. You're laying on the ground for 5-10 minutes at the end, but you're not there. You're exploring what's in here.
Well, you're present, right? And that's lacking in the West, because where does our stress and anxiety come from? It comes from us thinking of future or of past. That's where our stress and anxiety comes from. So when we are allowed to be, because we are human beings, when we can be, we feel the state of bliss, of peace, of I'm whole, right? And isn't it interesting that most people will say, yes, I love Shavasana, but most people will agree that is the hardest part of class because I want to move. I want to open my eyes. I want to go. I want to go. So my classes are 90 minutes long. Every class is different. I teach supported alignment, which is based off the Iyengar lineage. There are times where we do pranayama breath work for 45 minutes. And people say, what do you mean? We breathe every day. Sure. But studies show that we're breathing when we sleep, when we drive, when we whatever, we're breathing at roughly 30% capacity. So that leaves the upper lung stagnant. So BKS Iyengar, Mr. Iyengar, who my teachers studied under him, so it's a direct kind of lineage. Iyengar yoga is a dying branch of yoga. The standards are extremely strict to be an Iyengar teacher to have that title. So I feel.
Do you have to have Lululemon? Is that like one of the check?
I think it's like aloe yoga instead. Aloe clothing.
It's like whatever you can get. Okay.
But but it's interesting because my teachers will always talk about, like, if you go to India, which I have not been, but if you go to India, like a yoga mat, like, is a luxury. Like, people over there practice on wooden blocks, marble floors. They use backless chairs. They use all these props. And it was really fascinating for me to jump into this because I've only been studying this Iyengar yoga for roughly 3 years, 3.5 years. So when I was a flow teacher or a Vinyasa flow student, I would look at props and think props equal weakness. I'm like, I don't need that. I can touch the floor or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm such a different person, right? But now I'm like, give me all the props, because once you start to allow yourself to accept the support in the yoga room, it ripples out. So there's a saying that says, from Mr. Iyengar, he says, how one chooses to show up for themselves on the mat can reflect or reveal how one is showing up for themselves in their life. So are you rushing? Are you going? Are you ego driven? No, I don't need that. Or can you be? Can you drop into the present moment? Why is that so difficult for us to do? To be present. It sounds so simple, but we've been in this paradigm matrix of everything but that. So yoga really brings you back home, is what it really does. And it's a practice.
Well, that's a good point too, is it's a practice. I had a yoga instructor that was really about the practice side of it. And what I really like too is a teacher that would modify and show modifications for those that aren't on that level. I've been to some classes just like boom, 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 like this is how you do it. And a teacher kind of walking through like, okay, you got to do this, got to get like this. And this teacher, instructor specifically, would go around and help people out and say, let's modify this a little bit, and not make you feel like you had to do all these poses or even know what they are. If you're new to yoga, you don't know what they are. You just go.
Exactly.
And you're like, my wife knows them way better than I do, but I'll go and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
And that's how people get hurt in yoga, because they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking around. I'm just going to wing it. And then it's like, that's your first perception of yoga, something that's way out of reach or something that potentially harms you. And you're like, I'm never going back.
It's intimidating.
And sure.
It's intimidating,
right?
when you're seeing people doing handstands and all sorts of things. And you're like, I can't do that. I can't even sit in a lotus pose, Like
Sure.
people, that's hard to do, I think.
I'm glad you brought that up. Like lotus pose, like it's just like many other postures. It is excess. Sure, you could do it. You could flop, you could fold your leg, you could
Mm-hmm.
kind of muscle through it. But just because you can go there doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. Can you
So
sit
it's like,
straight
what
up
is
when you
this
do it? Or
doing
are you
long
like
term?
hunched over trying to like move yourself
Exactly.
in there and then you're just kind of like, and honestly, a lot of guys think of yoga through the prism of like working out and lifting weights and things like that. And so they feel like it's got to hurt, it's got to burn. You have to push yourself into these kind of contortionist positions. And that's how you'll get to that spot.
I can't tell you how many men that I have come to my studio. Most of them come from CrossFit or the gym or whatever. I love to
And now
teach
they're
to like
now,
schools.
now their knees and hips are jacked and shoulders. They're like, I need to do
But all
yoga
these
because
men, yes, all these men are like, hey, I just canceled my membership at CrossFit because like it doesn't fit me well. It doesn't feel good. And that's something like kind of going back to what you said when you're like, I appreciate a teacher who actually is paying attention to everybody, not just that star student who's doing the handstand or who's doing the crow or who has the split or whatever. But you, yoga is not a one size fits all. I broke my back. Maybe you didn't. I have a knee injury. Maybe you don't. Hell, I'm pregnant or I'm on my menstrual cycle. Maybe you're not.
yeah.
It can't fit everybody the same. And that is a big piece missing in Vinyasa flow yoga because there's no time to talk to your people.
Well, that's the thing
Right?
too. Like a crow's pose for whatever reason comes easier to me than some of the other poses. But I don't know
Totally.
why, but it just does. But there, I mean, hundreds of poses, if there are hundreds, that I can't do
Thousands.
well. And so you're right. Like it's about the things that fit and work for your body. And that's what I like about yoga is because it's with a good instructor, a good teacher that is talking about it being a practice and like someone like you that's versed in it still is practicing, still is learning, still is
Life.
changing, still is adapting, still saying, I would like to get to a place where I can do this pose or movement or whatever it is, but understanding that it's a journey to work to that spot, and it's not, and you're not just you didn't. In other words, you didn't conquer yoga. I don't know if yoga is conquerable. Is that a word? Conquerable?
It is now. But no, you're right. I mean, again, if you look at so for those of you who don't know who Mr. BKS Iyengar is, I strongly suggest that you get his book, BKS Iyengar, Light on Life.
Okay, send it to
Every
me, and then I'll put it in the
Cool.
notes on YouTube and stuff.
Light on Life.
BKS Iyengar.
Iyengar.
Okay, cool. I'll
Light
just
on
put it in there.
Life. Absolutely. Every sentence, I'm like, yes, yes. And it's not just for the yogi, but for the human experiencing life. That's just be gentle with yourself. Study yourself. We're in this life right now. We're so external. We're seeing how many images a day, it's just so outward. So to be in, and that's something that I'll say at the beginning of my class. We do a chant, we do some ohms, and then it's go inside. Become aware of the external, like a passing cloud or a passing car. Oop, my mind just went there. Did I lock my car? What am I going to have for dinner? Da 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 da. But don't attach to it. That's the practice. Non-attachment. Right?
Letting it pass. Yeah.
Powerful. Powerful.
What would you say are some of the main misconceptions of yoga? I think we kind of talked about it. Like you got to have Lululemon. You got to have all the, the trappings of a yoga. Someone that looks like, they can do yoga. What are some of the misconceptions for people that are trying to get started, that are intimidated? Like, I know people, my mother-in-law is one of them that's like, I don't want to just go by myself. I'll go with you guys. I'll go with but I'm not going to go by myself because it's intimidating.
So how about I put it to you like this? If you go to my website, zenden.yoga, one of the first things you'll see is if you can breathe, you can do yoga. Okay. The misconception. I have to be skinny. I have to be a vegan. I have to take a wheatgrass shot every day. I have to have a Lululemon top on. I have to have a $200 yoga mat. I have to know what I'm doing. Yoga is not, when you walk into the studio, especially at my studio Zenden, there is a diverse selection of age, of, reasons why they come there, of injury, of height, of size, of everything. So yoga is for people who want to self-heal. Do you want to feel better in your body? Everybody is worthy of that. Nobody can give you that except you. So you have the choice to do the work, because the work is not easy, but the only way through is in. And the only way to the path to freedom is to do the work. And so the work that we do, where we're holding postures with support, for example, if we're doing trikonasana, and you have really tight hamstrings, which is very common in men, and you can't touch your hand to the floor, build blocks up so that you can actually have straight legs and maintain in the posture, and study the balance of your foot, study the cadence of your breath, study the grip of your mouth, the grip of your skin, the furrow of your brow. So this work that I teach, again, supported alignment, it's asking you to marinate, even if it's uncomfortable. Because how can you expect to be polished if you aren't willing to be rubbed? And so, sure, today, that back bend in the chair might be uncomfortable, but the yoga reveals. Okay, it's not the yoga that's causing you discomfort. It's the yoga posture that is revealing, hey, you've got some stagnation and congestion and some dis-ease that's been living in your left hip forever. Oh, no wonder why. I have a left knee problem. Okay, well, now you know, there's your answer. You can self-heal. So it's a purging of the emotional map, the physical map, the spiritual map, the energetic map, the mental map. So things will come up. And emotional releases are a part of this path to free yourself, to enlightenment in a sense. So again, I think that's also in the West, it's like crying equals shame, crying equals weakness. I understand that paradigm. I get that. I used to think that one day too. But when I realized, or rather when I was in a back bend, I thought my back was breaking. It hurt so bad. It took my breath away. I was crying. And my teacher said, do you want 5 minutes of pain or do you want 15 years of pain? You choose. I was like, whoa. That changed like my life. That was very powerful. And that was me recognizing I am a powerful being and I have that choice. And so I do my best to ripple that out to everybody. You have the choice to make yourself feel better. I can't do it for you. You have to do that.
That's interesting.
That's the practice.
What I really like about what you're talking about is individualism, where you're kind of in a group of people, but you're kind of on this little singular journey in terms of being on different levels. And the one thing I learned early doing it, and I'm a novice, is to stop looking at other people and seeing what they're doing, other than just to kind of, you might look at somebody that's experienced or the instructor or teacher, you might look and say, okay, am I doing this right? Okay, yeah, I'm doing this right. But to stop and just say, I'm going to kind of be in the moment with myself doing this practice or doing what's going on, and I'm going to stop looking at everybody else, because I feel like when you're doing that, and especially people that do yoga for their first time or very, very beginner stages, you're kind of looking at other people to see if they're looking at you because you don't know what you're doing.
Of course. Of course, but we all start there. Again, the yoga room is not like this group of like circus, flexible, freaky people. It's like we're just normal people who want to feel better. And I think it's all encompassing because yoga, yeah, you get that element of physicality, but you get that mental kind of component too. So in postures, like somebody might be hysterical crying, I can't breathe. And then the next person might be sleeping in such a meditation. So I like, yes, everybody is on their own individual journey. And I'm like, I just love it so much. There's so much I want to say about it, but I just lost my train of thought. See, I just went off. I just lost my train of thought.
You just got into a moment where your mind was just deep into something, and it's hard to bring it back. What do you think? How do you think yoga for you personally and for people helps, especially during what's going on now? We've got, political divisiveness. We've got COVID that we're living with. We've just got a lot of things right now that are just kind of unprecedented. And I mean, I think it's easy to say, well, yeah, it gives you time to center and things like that, but maybe about how it's helped you, because you're pretty active in terms of politics now. You probably weren't that much before, but you've kind of almost been forced into it. And like, how does it help somebody that might be listening, that's driving, that's like, what does it do for you? What would motivate somebody to say, I'm going to go find a class. I'm going to go sign up for a class. If it's open, I'm going to go online right now in my little neck of the woods and find a yoga studio. What does it do for them? What does it do for you?
It brings you home. It brings you to your truth. Again, we spent most of our life living in this world where the external has told us what to do, has told us what to be. So yoga will strip the external away and bring you in to your truth. Very simple. I love what you just said for those of you driving, especially. So it's this understanding, again, talking of like the tree of yoga, right? Yoga can sometimes equal breathing. So people say to me, oh, is that why you're so fit? Because you do yoga every day? It's like, you have to understand, I don't sweat my ass off, okay, every single day by any means. Yoga to me may be lying down on some props, getting comfortable, and going on this journey inward where I like shut the blinds to the external, I turn the lights on the internal, and I go for a journey. And I'm like, what's going on in my pinky toe? What's going on in my big toe? What's going on in my elbow? So you go on this journey within, and something that's so simple can be breath. So especially for those of you listening, maybe you're driving, maybe whatever, take a second, close your eyes, just lightly close your eyes. Okay.
Not if you're driving though.
Oh yeah, please. Sorry. Not if you're driving. Sorry. Good point.
I'm
Not
just
if you're
kidding.
driving. Okay. Thank you.
I know common
that.
sense
Not
is
if
kind
you're
of
driving.
dead. Common sense is dead now, but I mean, you think that
The coffee is
people are
hot.
just-
Be careful. Yeah, seriously. Okay. So simple things, mindfulness, awareness, right? Whether your eyes are open or closed, feel your teeth separate. That's an act of softening. Okay. Feel your tongue drop down from the roof of your mouth. That's an act of softening. Invite your throat space to soften. And I know I'm running through these quickly, but this is something like you hear me say it, and then you tell yourself, separate the teeth, and you say it, and you echo it over and over and over again until the body listens. Because there are some things that I'll say, and the body's like a stubborn teenager. It's like, I don't want to soften, or I don't want to engage. It's like, no, you might have to tell your stomach to soften 20,000 times before it listens.
Yeah.
But let's go back. Okay. So teeth separate, tongue drops, throat softens. So you can think about the throat as like kind of like an entryway to the lungs or to the breath in a sense, right? So we want a nice open kind of door, if you will. So very simple. And this is something I do every single day of my life, especially when I notice that things get turbulent in the external. Very simple. All you say, I am breathing in. I am breathing out. That's yoga because it yokes mind, body, and breath. That's what yoga translates to. It doesn't need to be this. It doesn't need to be a foot behind head. Okay, there's a time and place for that. But let's start simple. Let's start small. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. Maybe after one breath, you feel, ooh, I just feel a softening. Maybe you're like, I don't feel anything. Good. Say it to yourself 10 more times, 20 more times, 50 times. Build it up. Okay, yes, I hit it 20 times. Great. Next week, go for 50. Tomorrow, go for 70. Build it up slowly, slowly, slowly. And again, that goes back to our instant gratification, the way that we've been living. We don't take the time to let it happen. So if that breath doesn't resonate with you, because we all learn differently, right? Most people are very visual, but another one that I love to offer out is count. It's not whoever gets the highest number wins. That's not what this is about. But let's start 4. Simple. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the breath over to exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you do that over and over and over again until you feel that zen that always lives within.
Yeah.
Right? Did you do that while I was talking? Did you feel anything? Because I did.
Yeah. My tongue feels heavier
Powerful.
now. My tongue feels super heavy.
And when's the last time, like, do we ever think about our tongue? No, we don't ever think about our tongue unless we burn it on coffee or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So the yoga will bring awareness.
I think what's scary, I talked to my kids about this. I've got 4 kids. So what is scary is being alone with your mind. And we shouldn't be scared of that.
No.
You know what I mean?
I think
We did
it's a
something the
beautiful
other
thing.
day as a family. This is going to sound super hippie-ish and weird, but I'm going to say it
No
because
judgment.
you'll understand. But we did this thing the other day where we all laid on the floor in our living room, and we I hate even saying stuff like this because it feels like I'm being like a virtue signaling or something like that, but this is what we did, and I want to get your take on it. So we wrote down something we wanted to get rid of in our mind just for a minute, because I've got a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old boy. The others are girls. And, it's a busy life. I've got, prepubescent teens. I've got one that is a teenager that's going through puberty. There's a lot going on there. And so we took some time, turned the lights off, just turned some soft lighting on, played some, go on Spotify or whatever and find some meditation music. We wrote that stuff down, some of the things we want to just kind of get out of our mind for a little bit. And we held on to that and we laid and just thought about it. What would it feel like to get that out? How were we going to push that out of our life? And, my youngest boy he did a pretty good job. And then we took those papers and then we shredded them in the shredder and said, okay, I'm getting rid of that for now. We know that it'll come back and there's things that we'll have to deal with, things like that. We're not ignorant to know or to think that it's not going to come back to us. But for a moment, we just want to get rid of some of those things so that our mind can settle down. And I think it's a lost art in terms of, I don't know if it's an art, but practice to be alone with yourself.
I agree. It's always deemed like a bad thing. You're a loner. You're a loser. You don't have friends. There's so much power in being with you, because that's part of the reason why I think I intimidate a lot of people, even though I'm 5'2" and 105 pounds. I'm mini but mighty because I am sovereign and I know who I am and I know what I am not. And I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look at myself and say, you are beautiful, you are healthy, you are safe, you are protected. When most people, if they look at themselves in the mirror, tears instantly come.
Yeah.
Right? So being alone is a very powerful thing because you spend time with this, nobody else.
And
You
nobody
have the
knows what's going
choice.
on in your mind unless you
True.
divulge it. But nobody knows, and half the time we lie about what's in our mind anyway.
And the other half of the time, what's in our mind doesn't even come to fruition. It never happens, right? But totally like spinning to what you just shared with your family. So something that I actually have written here to offer out to people listening is to write. And one of my favorite coping mechanisms is called a rage page. So you can get a pen, whatever, as big as you want, and just get
Preferably
it out there.
a red pen. That sounds super enraged.
Just a rage page. It can be to whoever. Get it out there. Get it out, and then have some kind of ceremony or ritual. I love burning it in a fire, or it's the middle of winter here in New England. So in the sink, shredding it works great too, ripping it up, but not letting yourself read it and having that intention backed with action that says, I'm going to let this go.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful stuff, a rage page. Another powerful tool is a forgiveness letter. You can write it to yourself. You can write it to somebody else last week, 17 years ago, whatever. Write it out. Don't ever look at it again. Shred it, get rid of it. But at least you've gotten it out of your container. And I'm not saying one and done.
Yeah.
You might have to do this over and over and over again. But those are very helpful tools, tangible tools, especially for the one who says sitting and going inside makes me want to scream. How are people still? How are people quiet? It makes me want to tick. So to have a tangible tool, it's a great starting place to go inwards and listen to yourself. Can you sit with yourself? That's something I often ask my class when they first enter. Can you sit with yourself? Can you sit with what your frequency is? And if not, recognize it. I'm kind of being an asshole right now, or whatever it is. And then you have the choice and the power to change it. And so when people start to understand that they are powerful beings and they kind of put their hands back on the wheel, that's how change happens for you, by doing the work.
I 100% agree. And this is one of the biggest, I would say, pet peeves that I have right now. And it is this victim mentality. There are victims. People are victimized. It's kind of this idea, I'll correlate it with this. When people say, you're perfect just the way you are. And I say, no, you're not, because you can always be better. That's how I feel about it. No, you're perfect just the way you are. Well, if you're perfect the way you are, then, you might be Jesus if you're a Christian. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so I only bring that up because, we all have room to grow and room to change and room to evolve, and we need to allow ourselves to grow and change and evolve and adapt. But we don't really allow that stuff. But it seems like what people have done is said now, well, it's because I'm a victim. It's because this happened to me. It's because the chips are stacked against me. And it's not without recognizing that there are things stacked against people in certain ways. But I would just submit that everybody has those. And they just come in different forms. Whether it's the way you were raised and upbringing, or there's so many things. There's so many trials and things that people are dealing with. I like how you talk about just being powerful. How do you be powerful without being a victim? Because you don't get anywhere being a victim, in my opinion. How do you become powerful when you are a victim? I don't think it's possible.
No, you can't, because it's a choice of perspective. We all have equal opportunity. I believe that we all have equal opportunity in this lifetime. Okay.
I'll play devil's advocate here and just say that's not entirely true, but I'll go down the road with you on it. Because I think you're right in the direction, but I don't think everybody has equal opportunity. But finish your thought.
Equal God-given opportunities.
Oh, there
and
you go,
freedoms.
just bringing up God again.
I know,
oh my
I know,
gosh.
I know.
How dare you?
I know. The victim. But
Equal universality of, progress, whatever you want to call it.
because listen, people will look at me and they will see a pretty face. She has everything. Da, da, da. False.
Yeah.
I was always an outcast my whole life because the way that I grew up was on the very opposite end of the spectrum as to how my peers grew up. I grew up with an addict father who was in prison. He is a felon. I grew up with a lot of abuse in my household. So I'm looking at myself at 31 years old right now and saying, and I am the oldest of four, by the way. I'm the oldest of four girls. So I'm looking and I'm saying, and many people have told me, you really haven't had an easy life. We all have different traumas. There's varied levels. Okay. Nobody's saying mine is worse. Yours is, it's not what we're playing here, but it is a choice. I have had many times in my life where I could have sat in the corner, cried, why me? Why me? I let myself cry it out. I get myself up, I dust off, and I move forward. And I think it was my tribulations that I once hated and despised as a child that I now am eternally grateful for. So how do you find power? You choose. Do you want it? Do you want to be powerful, or do you want to be controlled by somebody else? It's a choice.
It is a choice. I guess I could say I had a similar upbringing. I don't know your upbringing, but I had addicts in my, in my family, and I have kind of used it for lack of a better word, as a weapon. Like, I've used that as like, okay, I can see things, I can understand certain things that maybe other people don't understand. And I'm going to use that as a positive for me. I'm not going to just sit and dwell on that. There's been times where I've been, down, and I've had to work through things. There's no question about that. We're not eliminating the fact that, hard things, weigh you down. Hard things, take a process, take whatever. It could be a number of things, counseling, medication, all these things that people, have to go through. But my question always is, internally, and to maybe those that go through hard things, is why don't you want to overcome, and why don't you want to become powerful? I know a lot of people hear that and say, well, you don't understand. And you're probably right. I don't understand everything. Again, I'm not Jesus. I don't know it all. But I think all of us have had our share of really hard processes, and we're going to go through more of them. I mean, I think you're going through some right now that probably is something you didn't imagine that you'd go through.
Ever. I mean, 3.5 years ago, I was engaged to my high school sweetheart. Stuff happened. At the same time, I chose to leave the studio, the job that I was at for 5 years. So it felt like my world is crumbling. No idea what I was going to do. It was kind of like, I'm at the cliff. My toes are kind of hanging off. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to throw it all up and see what sticks. And it was that point in my adult life where I could have easily stayed in the perpetuation of my ancestral curse of staying in unhealthy relationships because it was easier, because it was comfortable, because that's what I knew, right? Because I had a roof over my head, yada, yada, whatever. But man, there's something within that just roars. And it's kind of like, you gotta jump first to believe that a net or something will catch you. So it's kind of like, again, I made that choice, one life to live. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to stay stuck, play small and perpetuate? I kind of visualize it like monkey bars. Hands on the back bar, hands on the front bar. To move forward, what do you have to do? You got to let go of this hand. And man, is that hard, because I'm safe here. I'm good. I'm good here. But when you let go, everything that you've always wanted could be right there. So what have you got to lose? And it's really a dismantling of these programs that we've been conditioned and controlled by, which again, I know sounds wonky to some people right now. I understand that, but I don't know how else to say it.
Well, and then to elaborate more on your monkey bar thing, eventually you'll get tired and you'll fall and you won't get to the other side. And so then you got to walk back around and climb that ladder again and get on there when you could have just taken that leap and maybe gotten to the other side, you know?
Well, yeah, you could have held on for.
And you probably will fall.
If you're in victim mentality, you are perpetually pointing the finger and creating divide. Period.
Yeah, it's a hard thing right now that's going on. Like I mentioned, I've got 4 kids, and I feel like how I would never tell my kids to think that they cannot become something great. Think that the deck is stacked against them. Think that they are not worth fighting for. They're not worth taking a chance on. They're not worth hard work to get to a goal. Many people would say, well, that's because you're mildly successful white male and your kids don't go through hard things. And I would say maybe that's partly it. I mean, my childhood was far different than my children. They have 2 parents that say goodnight to them every single night, which, you know, I didn't get any of that. I didn't get that. I didn't have a terrible childhood, but it rivals some bad childhoods for sure. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. But I did learn a lot of things in the process. But the idea that to tell people that they cannot become great, they cannot become something without the help of somebody else, it's a hard thing to cut through.
I mean, it's a very hard thing to cut through. And I'm right now in the world and the collective. I'm watching, and it's like, yes, we say these things to our children. We were maybe told these things as a child ourselves. When does that stop? Why does that stop? At what age does that switch? It's very fascinating to just be an observer.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this before. I think we talked about it, is where and when did we stop dreaming in adulthood? Like, when did it happen where, you know, if you ask a kid what they want to be, they'll give you like 5 or 6 things. I want to do this. I want to be a rocket ship. I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's so many things. And then we become, you know, I think mid to late 20s, and then into your 30s, you're like, I'm just where I'm at. Well, you have 50 more years to live.
I know. Statistically,
and so you're going to stay the same way? I mean, we all get stuck in there. We all stay in that road at some point.
See, and that's for me, like seeing that life is real, because I grew up in a very small town. Grew up in a very small town, going through my 20s and going through the unveiling of like, whoa, once you kind of put your big boy or big girl pants on and you kind of face the world. It's like, we're not protected by this little small town bubble of our parents anymore. So like I've lost smacks you in the face, and because tomorrow is not guaranteed, it's like, well, what are you going to do with this life?
Yeah.
Because 20 years isn't guaranteed. Oh, I'll do this when I have enough money. And see, that for me, that was something that fear boxed me in. I'll travel when I have money. I can't because of work. Da da da. I was putting myself in those limitations.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared shitless to break those and to take that leap. But as I said previously, you got to take that leap first and believe something will catch you and carry you. And it has, and it did.
Yeah, and it's not to say, I've always thought, like people that say they did it all on their own, I traditionally disagree with, because there's always a little help on the way. There's luck.
For sure.
There's, a door opened for them, things like that. But I mean, you in some respects, you have to take a leap on something. You have to take a chance on something. And why not let's turn this into a Tony Robbins rant. Why not take a chance on yourself?
Why not? This is something that my dad had always said to me. He says, nothing to it but to do it. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And I used to hate when he said that. I'm like, stop, but life's so unfair or whatever. And now I'm like,
it's because it makes you accountable.
Exactly. Nothing to it but to do it. If it's going to be, it's up to me. So go put your big boy, big girl pants on and go do it. Go get it. What do you want? What are you waiting for? Go get it.
No kidding, man. So my little saying in my little world, and this is my own little saying, it's not on, you can't search for it on Google. I'm sorry, but there's beauty in the battle and there's greatness in the grind. And like, it's just something that I've created for myself. And I think everybody would do well to create some sort of motto in their mind to help them move through certain things that kind of motivates them, because life's hard sometimes, but that's where some of the really precious and beautiful moments come from.
Agreed.
And sometimes they're small and short, and we got to kind of be able to grasp those and hang on to them.
Well, it's beautiful to be in a place in my life where, leaving my ex-fiance and leaving my job on rocky terms, on unjust terms, and, even dealing with the doxing and defamation that I'm personally dealing with now. People always ask, like, how come you don't fight back? How come you don't do this? And it's like, had I not been knocked down, had these people not been asses or whatever, I would have never taken that leap. So thank you.
Yeah. There you are.
Losing you.
I know.
There I am.
You said thank you. That's what you were saying. You're thanking the people that are calling you names, essentially.
Thank the people who, at one point I was mad. I let myself feel that rage or whatever, that emotion. I could have stayed in that. But now I'm at a place where it's so beautiful to say thank you, because you would have never pushed me. I would have never jumped. So it's a beautiful place.
It's a hard thing.
It is.
To be even just starting this thing. It's only been a couple months, and it's not wildly successful, but I've had, I think.
Well, what does successful mean? How do you define success?
Exactly. Now there you go again. There people go saying, what's successful to you? Well, as somebody that likes traditional capitalism, not crony capitalism, you get really like, I mean, it's kind of like the Instagram thing. I haven't been on Instagram till just a month or two ago, and you can get trapped into that, posting something, and does anybody care about that post? But you kind of just have to leave it. My wife the other day said, "How's things going? Like, how many people are listening? Things like that." And I said, I haven't looked for a few days because I want to get out of that, like looking all the time, seeing what's going on. But there's, I think, over 1,000 downloads now I'm just throwing this thing. I'm just throwing it together, honestly. But, you know,
but as you continue to feed it, it will grow.
well, yeah. And what's interesting is how many people diss on you for trying something.
Preach.
You know what I mean?
How much time you got?
Isn't it crazy how, and we can riff on this just for a minute, but it's amazing how many people want you to fail.
It's really sad because
And
I understand that's a direct reflection of them and the hate in their heart. It's sad.
yeah, and what they're maybe scared of and things like that. But
Sure.
I mean, for you, I mean, people have like full on attacked you. Like, I mean, maybe not physically, but like full on, like, you know, it's interesting to me, and I read a lot of news on all sides, and I feel like one side does it more than the other, but they both do it. But one side is really eager to cancel other people, really, really eager. Like, this person should be taken down. This person should be their place of business should be closed. This person's sponsorship should be removed. I feel like it's a little bit more one-sided. I wouldn't venture to say it doesn't happen on the other side, because it does. But I feel like it just kind of emboldens people when you do that.
People don't understand that the hate that they throw my way is nothing but motivation for me.
How long do you think you can sustain that? Because that's the thing.
Sustaining it my whole life.
Yeah, but I mean, it does hurt sometimes, doesn't it?
Of course. I had a great cry this morning, screamed into the pillow.
Yeah.
Of course. I let myself, and I'm gentle with myself. So today, my heart feels heavy today. Okay. So I let myself just be easy. I'm in sweats, just kicking around the house, just saying, you know what, it's okay. Today, let's just get through today. And if that means doing nothing, then so be it. But I need to take care of myself mentally and physically. You know?
Yeah, and people think they win if they tear people down. It's unfortunate. It really is.
It's very sad.
What do you think?
Very, very sad to see. You know, I've had people tell me that I should kill myself. I've had people tell me that they're going to laugh and celebrate the day my business fails, which is really crazy because they don't know that I am serving my community. They don't know that people come in to my place of business crying, saying, Joe, if it wasn't for this space, I probably would have taken my own life last week. That is a true story. And so when somebody tells me they hope that I close down, they don't understand the ripple effect as to who else will be affected by that too. It's really sad.
So going back to self-healing and things like that, that is what's important when it comes. So when I started this podcast, the idea is to kind of step outside of the box and quit allowing people to put you in boxes and kind of shelf you accordingly to whatever kind of thing you say, and not allow anybody to evolve. What I believed when I was 25 to now is similar, but it's different. You know, there's some similar values, but it's evolved because life experiences and friendships, and you see things and you experience things with, with friends and family and humanity that you say, I need to change and evolve kind of in that area. And we do it to ourselves. And to just correlate it to politics, this is probably one of the things that is hurting both sides. We don't allow politicians to evolve, and they do it to themselves, and we do it to them. So if somebody, the easiest and best example that I can find that's a real big one is gay marriage, in terms of like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all really Democrats in general, Nancy Pelosi, everybody was against it. And then the political winds changed and they were for it, which I think good on you. But we didn't allow them to have that change because they're hypocrites. I know why we didn't, because they're hypocrites and because we wanted our team to win. But I think we need to do a little bit more of saying that was a good change. That was a good move. But we're so on teams right now that it's hard for us to get out of the team game.
It is hard. It's hard to break that box, but I think once you are able to zoom out and see, it's really not so black and white in the sense where it's that box or this box. Because, for example, even though I voted for Trump, I still don't like everything he tweeted, everything he said. So it's like, this all or nothing isn't that realistic all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where the gray comes in. Gray area, man. There's so
that's
much gray
hey.
area. Seriously, there's so much gray area, and we're not allowing people to get in the gray area. I've had some conversations recently with people that are vehemently hate, loathe, and wish for the destruction of Donald Trump and anybody that voted for him, and feel like that anybody that did are a threat. They are dangerous. And likewise, I disagree with that, but likewise, I disagree with the other side thinking that though the other side is dangerous and terrible and wrong. And now there are dangerous policies. We can all agree on those things. But to lump people into this very, very small, finite box to say that because of this thing, you are now no longer my brother, my sister, my friend, my family, just a member of humanity. You are less than, you are not worth anything, is something we have to change. And I find myself internally thinking about that when I'm talking about things. Like, I got to step back and say, okay, where am I coming from on this? Because we can get down a dark road of just bam, 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 bam. This is this is this. Dangerous, dangerous. They're bad people, And
well, the boxing is a man-made manipulative tool to further divide, segregate, and separate. You need to understand that first before you can even consider opening your hand to somebody that may be in a different box than you.
Yeah,
I just posted this video, and it was they kind of box people like fit people, business people on a farm, people have never seen a horse, whatever. I posted on my personal accounts, and they ask questions. How many of you are step parents? How many of you were class clown? How many of you are in love? How many of you had your heart broken? And all these people from the different boxes come, and it's like, yes, let's remember that we are all cut from the same cloth. We are human beings. The labeling is man-made.
It is, and it's hard to get out of it. I find myself trapped in it.
Is.
We all kind of find ourselves trapped in it, where
Sure.
we label people. But that's why, to full circle this, that's why it's important to sit and to heal and to be inward and to have relationships, like meaningful, good relationships with people that are uplifting, that are helpful, that want progress, that want upward mobility. Because if you don't, then you're going to be kind of swirling in that world of victimhood and things like that.
I call it the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
It's like they're on the hamster wheel perpetuating, yet you're bitching about the same things. And I'm like, then do something. I don't know, then do it. But how? And I was there. There. So I have empathy and compassion. I understand it. But yes, coming full circle, I'd love to just, my fan favorites, I'd love to just offer out to those of you listening, one of my favorite mantras. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
and I'm not like trying to like close it by any means. We can continue. But may you surrender to what is. May you let go of what was. And may you always have faith in what will be. And believe that the best is yet to come. That's it.
I mean, that's good. It's hard to think that way. But I tend to think that way. I tend to try to be optimistic. I think people that listen are like, is the best yet to come?
I mean, if you don't have faith in that, then what do you have? Come on, we got to believe that. Get excited.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. You got to be optimistic. And just don't let outside forces control you. You know, things that you can't control. Right. Like media and social media and all these things that just kind of drain you. They take you down. Use them as a tool and then get rid of them. I mean, use it and then get rid of it. Mm-hmm. And then go inward.
Yeah, because everything's here. This is all you can control. This vehicle, this body that we have in this human experience. We clearly can't control what's going on out there, because I'm sure things would be very different if we could have control on what's going on out there. So yeah, the only thing we can control is ourselves.
Yeah, we can control ourselves, and we need to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, and we also need to recognize that we can be wrong. It's okay to be wrong and to change and adapt and move and evolve, because that's what, in my opinion and estimation, this life is for. It's for growth. It's for change and evolution and learning. And it's not about, I mean, you're not perfect now. You didn't figure it out. Like I don't have it figured out. I don't. And
I mean, how many times have we, it's like somebody saying like, I hate spinach. And then like 10 years later, you're like, I actually eat spinach every day. So it's like, never say never. Like, don't cap yourself. Just be open. Whoa.
I don't know what that was.
That was just
that sounds
a
super intense.
Something on the wall.
Oh,
but all I ask people is just to observe without judgment, without expectation. Okay? Observe and just ponder, what if? What if? Could that be? That's it.
Yeah.
That's how I'm starting to experience my life. Yeah, that sounds crazy, but imagine if. No attachment. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's not yes, it's not no, just maybe. What if?
Interesting. Yeah.
That's it.
That's beautiful.
Thanks for listening to the Gray Box Podcast.